At old cars in California. This is weighted more towards GM in the 90s, probably the 80s. Why? Well, just because that's what I ran into. So this is a Buick, and then here we have a second generation Prius, which I think was made up until 2009. A lot of these have come out of the woodwork since the Ukraine war started and gas went up. Here's an Isuzu Trooper, I think from the 90s. It was also the Honda Passport. Amazing to see one still on the road. It might be a Westphalia, I'm not sure which VW van is in the background. And then this is one of my favorites, this old truck. I think it's a Ford. And then you look at the back. Well, we hope you live anyway, but I enjoyed that. Here's the Volkswagen New Beetle, which I think is now old enough to be an old car, something that they made a big splash, made them for a few years, and stopped making. This is the Mercury Tracer. I drove a hatchback, was an excellent car, lasted a long time, but you don't see them so much anymore. Not sure it's real well remembered. This is something kind of rare, an old Chevy Blazer. This one's outfitted for wilderness driving, a lot of off-road. A lot of these have fallen into the hands of restorationists, so they look like they did originally, but you would never take them off-road. This one is a Chevy Spark. This is one I liked a lot. Rode in it in Puebla as a taxi cab. But unfortunately, GM is a short attention span company, and they're unable to either improve their failures or build on success. They could have done something with this in the US, but they didn't. Here's another one of GM's. This is the Chevy Sonic. They're renamed Aveo because the car had some issues, and people noticed and they went away. This is an orphan, this time from Toyota. This was branded as a Scion. It was supposed to sell to younger people. And what older and younger people had in common at the time was they didn't care for it. Still interesting to see one on the road at this time. Here's a fun one, the Mercedes 560 SEC. The joke at the time was that stood for Securities and Exchange Commission. The car itself is a lot cheaper than they were back in the day, but I think the parts are as expensive as ever. Here's one that's bought by people who really know cars, the Mercury Grand Marquis. Very easy to work on. Law enforcement liked it a lot because it's one of the last cars that's body on frame, and they use their cars as roadblocks, so they'll get crashed up, and they're real easy to repair. Easy to repair all the way through. It's a shame they didn't improve on it and keep making it, but on to the next one. So we have Chevy Nova or Chevy 2 from the early 60s. A good compact effort from GM. It's good to see one of these still on the road. And here is one of their rivals from about the same time. I think this is a 64 Plymouth Valiant, modified a little bit. And here is the Chevy Aveo hatchback. Liked him, never rode in one. But again, it's one of GM's where they brought it in and then forgot about it. Here is a Mercury Monterey from sometime in the 50s. And then here's a success that GM didn't build on. This is the Pontiac Grand Am, one of their big successes from the 90s. They made a bunch of them, updated it a little bit, and then forgot the whole thing. It might be part of the reason they went bankrupt, but a good car in its time. A lot of people liked them, and they were pretty reliable, as I recall. Here is a first generation Honda Fit. called the Jazz in other parts of the world. Thought about buying one of these, but didn't. But they're known as excellent cars. And here is a Toyota Echo. I think this was the basis for the first generation Prius. If it wasn't, it looks close to it. Anyway, that's a bunch of old cars in California.